Hi, welcome to this week's Parsha Shiur, Parsha's Teruma. Two very interesting ideas I'd like to share with you. The first is from the very opening of the Parsha. The Pasuk says, if you're listening online, please email me at j.golker@gmail.com. And I'll send you the handout. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe Lemor, Daber el Bnei Yisrael, v'yikchu li Teruma, me'eis kol ish asher yidvenu libo tikchu es Terumosi. The Parsha deals primarily with building of the Mishkan and all the Kelim, and the Pasuk begins with the request for donations. V'yikchu li Teruma, me'eis kol ish. Now the Meshech Chochmah points out that it says me'eis kol ish. Does that come to exclude anything? Says the Meshech Chochmah, yes. Says the Meshech Chochmah, Pirush me'eis kol ish, v'loi me'eis kol isha. Dafka to get donations from the men, but not from the women. Why? Shemei isha sheyesh labal. Because a woman who has a husband, ein mekablin gabay tzedakah dava meruba. A gabay tzedakah is not allowed to collect a significant amount of money from her. Kadesanya b'seif baba kama kuf yotes amud aleph. Because the Gemara Baba Kama says that a woman who is married, mashakona ishakona baila, she's not allowed to give money for tzedakah, a significant amount, because really it's the husband's money. A small amount we assume the husband will be moichel, but a larger, more significant contribution should not be given, and therefore the pasuk specifically says me'eis kol ish v'loi me'eis kol isha. That's the diuk of the Meshech Chochmah. I saw something very interesting in the Talei Oris, in the third box on the page. He says two very interesting anecdotes relating to this. The first is this: K'shechol Rabbi Shlomo Me'Oholiov, when Rabbi Shlomo Me'Oholiov, one of the well-known Talmidim of the Gaon, became ill, he had to travel for medical reasons. And one of his students, one of Rabbi Shlomo's students, accompanied his Rebbe on the journey. And he was poor, they didn't have money, so they had to collect money for his travel and medical expenses, and they were doing it as they were traveling. Wherever they went, they would collect, and that would sort of help the cause. One time on the journey, on the way, they stayed one night in a certain hotel, a certain inn, but the Baal Bayis didn't seem to be there. But Golker in the morning, after they moved on and continued their journey for many miles, Rabbi Shlomo asked his Talmud, I'm just thinking about it. How come we didn't see the Baal Bayis, the Baal Achsanya, there in the hotel? And he didn't come and inquire after our well-being, how we're doing. The Talmud responded, because the Baal Bayis was out of town. Then Rabbi Shlomo asked, hang on a second, you're asking for donations for my medical expenses. Did you ask the lady of the house, the Ba'alas Habayis? When the Talmud said yes, Rabbi Shlomo got very worried, he trembled. He told the wagon driver to stop straight away, and to turn around on his heels back to the malon, back to the hotel, to return the money that the lady had given for this cause. Because the Gemara says in Baba Kama, you're allowed to take money from women, a small amount, I don't know exactly, whatever she gave, is that considered a mu'at or meruba? I don't know what her financial status is to know whether this is a small or a larger amount. The carriage returned, and indeed the Talmud returned the money to the Ba'alas Habayis as per the Rotzen of the Shlomo. That is brought in the Elias Eliyahu. Then the Talei Oris brings another interesting anecdote of more contemporary times, of the Stipler. Listen to this, fascinating. There was one benefactor who had the tremendous chus to give money to help financially in the publication of the Stipler's Svarim, the Kilis Yaakov. But this Nadiv, after some time, he passed away. And the almona of this benefactor wanted to continue her late husband's practice. A bank check to pay for the costs of the publication of the next volume. But the Stipler refused to use the money. Maybe it's from the state of the husband. and he hamnam svur sheshayach lo, and the wife will innocently think that actually the money is due to her, is her money, or be'emes shayach liyarshim. But in halacha, that's not necessarily the case. That the money could well be for the yarshim, for the people who inherit him, and therefore, whilst she may think that the money is hers, really it halachically does not belong to her. Ad shebir Rabbeinu, until the disciple investigated and found out that indeed that the money was hers to give away. So not only did he accept the money, he actually went a step further. And when the disciple published the next sefer, the next volume, he actually has in brackets which one it was. It's Likutim Chelek Vov. He actually put in the front page that he actually checked, investigated, and the person who gave the money to the sefer, he thanked her, and he said that the money is actually hers ka'alocha, and he wrote, this is the nusach in the Kilas Yaakov, in the beginning there, I've investigated it, and the family have clarified for me that the money was all settled kadas v'kadin, and the money was given to her properly, and and therefore he thanks her for the support of the almana who gave the money. So amazing. So one has to be very careful about these things. It's a Gemara Baba Kama, and it has implications in the world we live in, plus related to this week's Sedra. That's why it says Yikchuli Truma me'es kol ish, as the Meshech Chochmah says, me'es kol ish v'lo me'es kol isha. Okay, let's move on. One of the central kalim, the famous kalim used in the Mishkan, is of course the aron with the kruvim on top of them. Let's see something very interesting. The pasuk says, "V'asu li migdash." I'm in paragraph 2, the first box. V'asu aron atzei shittim, and you should make an aron made out of cedar wood. Amasayin v'chetzi arka, amachetzi rachbe, v'amachetzi kemosei, 2.5 by 1.5 by 1.5. V'tzipisai soy zahav, and then you cover it in gold. Tahar, pure gold, and buy some mechutz from inside and outside. V'asisa kaperes, then you do the kaperes, the lids on top of the aron. Zahav Tahar, pure gold. V'asisa shnaim kruvim, you make 2 kruvim. V'asisa kruv echad mikatz mizeh, kruv echad mikatz mizeh. 1 kruv on one side, 1 kruv. There's these cherubs, the angelic childlike cherubs on either side. V'ya kruvim parsech nafayim lemala, and their wings are spread out. V'pneim ishel ochiv, and they face each other. Now, that's the last few words there. What I want to focus on, because the pasuk in this week's parsha says, "Pneihem ish el ochiv." The 2 kruvim on either side of the aron are facing each other. Yet the pasuk in Divrei Hayomim, in the next in Divrei Hayomim base, Perek Gimel pasuk Yud Gimel, says, "Hakruvim oimdim al ragleihem or pneihem lebayis." They're not facing each other, but they're facing the wall. They're facing away from each other. Stira, contradiction. How do you resolve that? So the Gemara in Baba Basra, Daf Tzadi Tes Amud Aleph, says it's machloikas. Keitzatin omdim. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar. 2 opinions. One Rabbi Yochanan and one Rabbi Elazar. Chadoma, one said, Pneihem ish elochiv, v'chadoma pneihem lebayis. One says they're facing each other. One says they're facing away from the wall. They're facing the wall away from each other. Says the Gemara, Uleman da'oma pneihem ish elochiv. According to the man da'oma who holds that the kruvim faced each other, how are you going to deal with the pasuk in Divrei Yomim? Haksivu pneihem lebayis. Says the Gemara leikasha. Kan bizman she'Yisrael oisin rishon shel makom. Kan bizman she'ein Yisrael oisin rishon shel makom. It depends. When Klal Yisrael are doing the Ratzon Hashem, the kruvim are facing each other. When they are not doing the Ratzon Hashem, they're facing away from each other. They're facing pneihem labayis. Okay, that is a well-known Gemara. The difficulty is this: there is a Gemara in Yuma Daf Nun Daled Amud Beis, the bottom box of the first page. Amar Rish Lakish. When the non-Jews, the enemy, came into the Heichal, the time of the Churban, they came into the Heichal and they saw the Kruvim embracing each other. They took them out to the street. This Jewish people, their blessing is a blessing, their curse is a curse. They're involved in these things. They cheapened it. The question, of course, is this is the time of Churban. If it's the time of the Churban, that's Ein Oisin Ritzon Shel Makom. They're not doing the Ratzon Hashem. So why are the Kruvim embracing? Surely we just said the rule is when they're doing the Ratzon Hashem, that's when they embrace. When they're not doing the Ratzon Hashem, they turn away from each other. Pneihem labayis. So how come at the time of the Churban, when the Goyim came in, they saw the Kruvim embracing each other? Now that contradiction we discussed in Parsha Shiur in the past, and I mentioned the Ritva. The Ritva gives two answers, and I think the last year, the year before, whenever we discussed it, I mentioned a Bnei Yisoscha. But this year I want to mention a very geschmacka answer of Reb Tzadok. But let me first just review the answers of the Ritva to this question. First of all, he brings the shitta of the Rimigash. He says, V'tiritz Ri, this is in the second line of the box, in paragraph 2c. V'tiritz Ri, Ki neis nas Elohim l'ra. I'll explain it to you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did a miracle, l'ra, to show Klal Yisrael, to make Klal Yisrael look bad. L'kai mashenem kol machbedeh hiziluha. I.e., the Rimigash says that there was a miracle to make Klal Yisrael look bad at the time of the Churban. In other words, you're right. The rule is when we're doing the Ratzon Hashem, the Kruvim embrace and look, they face each other. When we're not doing the Ratzon Hashem, they're away from each other. The Shas Churban, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the nace to make Klal Yisrael look a little bit improper, that the Jewish people have in the center point, in the holiest place. This is what they have, these childlike angelic figures embracing. Is that appropriate? So therefore, they did it to make Klal Yisrael look bad. The Chidah questions, it seems to be very strange to make a miracle l'ra, but that's how the Rimigash answers. The Ritva himself gives a different answer. He says as follows, V'li nira, from sugya dehasam, dahi bekruvim d'tzuras b'kaisel. We're not talking about the kruvim on top of the Aron. The kruvim that we're embracing, as described in the Gemara in Yoma, are talking about the kruvim that are depicted on the wall behind the Aron in the Kodesh Kodashim. Because Rashi says, when it says Hitzim Lashuk, it didn't take the Aron out into the Shuk, because the kruvim are connected to the Aron, but rather Kipulam min HaKaisel, says Rashi, i.e. he sort of peeled it off the walls, and they painted the walls. They refer to the kruvim painted on the walls by Shlomo HaMelech. They peeled that off and they showed that to the people outside to sort of embarrass Klal Yisrael. This is what they do, etc., etc. So two answers of the Ritva, the Rimigash, and then the Ritva his own answer. This year, what I'd like to share with you is an amazing piece of Reb Tzadok. Now, I heard this, someone referred it to me from Reb Sruli Bornstein. Reb Sruli Bornstein, the well-known Maggid Shiur of Daf Yomi, in Yuma Daf Nun Daled, which is where the second Gemara is from. And if you want to listen to it from him in person, it's 39 minutes into Daf Yomi Nun Daled, Yuma Nun Daled. But let me read you from the source itself, from Reb Tzadok HaKohen, which is on Chag HaSukkah Sivkot and Yud Ches. It's a beautiful piece. When I explain it, it will seem to be nothing to do with what we're discussing, but you'll see it has everything to do with what we're discussing. So let's take a look. Says Reb Tzadok, "B'nusach yiratzon k'shenichnasim l'sukkah." In the nusach of the yiratzon, when we go into the sukkah, anachnu omrim, we say, "Ubizchus seisim mebeisi achutza," in the merit of me leaving my comfortable home, chashav li bezois ki'ilu herchakdi nedoid. It's as if I'm going into Golus. V'yesh nuschos yosem afurish. And there are more explicit texts of this Yiratzon. And if I'm chayav golas, I should fulfill it by me exiting my house and sojourning in the sukkah. Says Reb Tzadok, it seems very strange that all of a sudden we're comparing this beautiful mitzvah of sukkahs as golas. Golus is a distress, is a pain, and someone who is in pain is potter from the sukkah. So what does it mean? He says the makar of the nusach is actually a psikta, a medrash. This of a psikta, mitzvah sukkah, after we have our averas wiped away on Yom Kippur, maybe one of the dinim that we had was that we have to go to Golus, to mitzvah sukkah Golus, and therefore the mitzvah of sukkah should be like a Golus. B'chol dichsiv l'bos ad bovel shom tinotznu misham yigal Hashem. Interesting, very cryptic. It should be like Golus bovel. When we go into the sukkah, it should be like Golus bovel, because it says there bosa ad bovel, and from there HaKadosh Baruch Hu will redeem you and save you from your enemy. What does that mean? Now, says Reb Tzadok. I had made a bracha before. Ulahavin mashem maskir, to understand what is mentioned, daika begolus bovel. We specifically say golus bovel. Halo anachnu mushubadim bechol arba malchus. We've been going through 4 exiles, not just Golos Bavel. Achin Golos Bavel Merames. We specifically highlight Golos Bavel to highlight because it's alluding Shekol Inyan HaGolos Heim Rak L'Tovas V'Yishus Israel. Golos generally, and particularly Golos Bavel, is actually, of course, for the benefits and for the ultimate salvation of the Jewish people. Because the Golos of Bavel actually was the beginning of the flourishing of Torah. Says Reb Tzadok, they grew and gained more in Bavel than they did whilst they were in Eretz Yisrael prior to that. I heard from the Holy Admar, and I think when the Tzadok quotes his Holy Admar, I think he's referring to the Ishbitzer, when they went to Bavel, when Churban happens, Churban Bayis Rishon, they went into Golos in Bavel, everyone was very distressed. However, Yechezkel Hanovi went with tremendous simcha, with tremendous joy. Hainu mipnei sheyechezkel hirgish, because Yechezkel was spiritually sensitive enough to feel Or Hakadusha Asher Yizriach HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael, but Bavel Yoisim Yoisim Yoshim Alad Mosam. Yechezkel he sensed that there was a special divine light coming down, accompanying the Jewish people as they were exiting Eretz Yisrael to go to Golos to Bavel. It was revealed to Yechezkel more than to any other Navi. And he saw things which other Naviim didn't see. The Zohar says, Tzadok quotes it, when they went down to Bavel, the heavens opened, and the Holy Spirit descended on Yechezkel, and he saw what he saw, and he told the Jewish people, we're going to be here for a while, and the heavenly body is going to come and accompany you and going to dwell with you. When the Jewish people heard that, they rejoiced. They were less worried about the Golos. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu has not abandoned them. And the Shekhinah is going to come with them. Next paragraph. There in Golos, there was this explosion of Torah Shebal Peh. In the Shiur Rabbah, the Medrash in Shiur Shirim, Harbe Tzadikim Emadi B'Churbani Yoisim Yeshuva. There were more tzadikim that flourished in Golos, in the Churban, than in the Yishuv, than during when the Beis Hamikdash was standing. And there were many gezeras that were enacted then. And it was all because of the Anshe Knesset Sagdola who were residing in Bavel. Those 120 great men amongst the many Nevi'im who did so much for the Jewish people. The Shemona Esrei that we daven nowadays, that is composed by the Anshe Knesset Sagdola and many other takonos and gedarim which they made. He was of the last remnants of the Anshe Knesset Sagdola, and he says in Pirkei Avos, he said, set up many Talmidim, make boundaries in Torah, because there was this explosion of the proliferation of Torah. And for example, the Purim story, which we're looking forward to very soon, that happens at this time when there was the Anshe Knesset Sagdola. They were in Golos and they re-accepted the Torah Shebal Peh, Kimu v'Kiblu, Ki Kafias Har B'Sinai Hayal Torah Shebal Peh, because the forced acceptance of Torah at Har Sinai on the Torah Shebal Peh, the Medrash Tanchuma says, they needed enormous amounts of effort and they needed to reject the pleasures of this world. However, in Golos, they accepted the Torah with Ava and with Simcha. The entire Torah Shebal Peh ultimately was given to them and was revealed to them in Bavel. It was so, the Torah there was so powerful and so intense, and the connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu was so powerful that Rabbi Yehuda, the Gemara in Ksubas Kuf Yud on the base says, prohibited people from leaving Bavel even to go to Eretz Yisrael. And the Golos itself caused this proliferation of Torah, this expansion of Torah. What does that mean? The Rav, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, was angry with Klal Yisrael. Golos it caused this roiv chochma, this abundance of wisdom. For kamei kein mitzvah sukkah, so too the mitzvah sukkah. Tekav achar Yom Kippurim shenimchu la'avonos, after the avonos has been wiped out, nasim bria chadosha, we have become a new entity. L'skar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to come close to Hashem. Meramez lanu sha'agolus hu laharbes kedushaseinu. Therefore, the golus is coming to increase kedusha. The tekav anachnu nekrosim lemitzvah lekedusha, and therefore we're going into this holy sukkah and this holy and mitzvah purpose. Gamkein magenes aleinu, so too it protects us ki yaprisa sukkah shalom, and because it protects this sukkah of shalom. Anachnu yeshim b'seisei elyon, we're dwelling in the proximity and with the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It protects us from the enemies, etc. Therefore, using this Rabbi Tzadok, we can answer our question. What was our question? Our question was, the Gemara, the Pesukim seem to be so to each other. Our Pasuk in this week's Hedra tells us of Pneim Ish Elochiv. The Pasuk in Dirayom says Pneim Labayis. The Gemara in Basra says that when we're doing the Ratzon Hashem, they're facing each other. When we're not doing the Ratzon Hashem, they're facing away from each other. The Gemara in Yuma Nun Daled Amud Beis says, B'shas the Churban, the Kruvim were Amu'urin Zebazeh, they were embracing. Says Rabbi Tzadok, we can understand it now. Because this was the beginning of Churban. Yes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was angry. So the build up till that point, no doubt the Kruvim were facing away from each other, as per the Gemara in Baba Basra. However, at the moment of Churban, this was a catalyst. This was a point in time which was going to trigger a massive explosion of Torah, Talmud Bavli, of closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The same reason the Yechezkel rejoiced when he went into Golas Bavel, because he recognized there was opportunity there. Therefore, for that moment to reflect that concept, for that short moment in time, the Kruvim were embracing each other because it was a recognition of the fact that there's going to be a bounty of Torah in this, an opportunity of the proliferation of Torah in the Golas Bavel. So that explains the problem. So just to summarize, the things we've mentioned today. Number one, the beautiful Meshech Chochma, Kol Ish Asher Yidvenu Libai, Me'ez Kol Ish, V'le Me'ez Kol Isha. Dafka, we can take contributions from the men and not from the women who are married, because of the halachic problems raised by the Gemara in Baba Kama Kuf Yotes Omid Aleph. And those two anecdotes, one of Shlomo of Meholiov and the second of the Stipler, regarding donations from women. And the second idea that we discussed, the stira between the Gemara in Baba Basra and the Gemara in Yuma, how do we resolve that? The Gemara in Yuma suggests that they were embracing. How can that be? The Gemara in Baba Basra says, B'shas, when we're not doing the Ratzon Hashem, they should be facing away from each other. The answer is, we've seen three answers. The answer of the Rimigash, that it was a specific miracle to show Klal Yisrael in a bad light at the time of the Churban. Questioned by the Chidah, the Ritva gives his answer that we're referring not to the Kruvim on the Aron, but to the Kruvim depicted on the wall behind the Aron that were peeled off and they were shown to, and they were of course depicting when the Klal Yisrael are doing the Ratzon Hashem. And then lastly, the idea of Reb Tzadok, that's like Yechezkel was besimcha because he saw the opportunity in the Kedusha and the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was coming with him into Galus. Well, so too, at that moment of Churban, for that sort of point in time, the Kruvim embraced to reflect the opportunity and the catalyst of there being a proliferation of Torah in Galus Bavel.